A representation made by a United Kingdom Lord in the House of Lords last week has come as music to the ears of Colombo. Lord Nasby, who says he's an old friend of Lanka, researched the classified documents of his own government and found that the casualty figure of 40,000 civilians killed in the last stage of Lanka's civil war was a guess by the Darusman Commission set up by the United Nations to probe the civil war. The real number was around 7,000. Vians Mandy Clark spoke exclusively to Lord Nasby in London. Here is a report. Take a look.
The 30-year civil war in Sri Lanka ended in May 2009. But at the behest of the United Nations Human Rights Council, UNHRC, the world has been aggressively demanding that the Sri Lankan armed forces admit that they killed 40,000 civilians during the last phase of civil war. Prime targets of the West's censure are former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the first Sri Lankan head of state to ignore Western intervention and bring that war to an end, and his brother, the then Defence Secretary, who is accused of giving the armed forces a free hand to kill the civilians. For years, it seemed as though especially the United Kingdom, home to a large Sri Lankan Tamil population, was immune to seeing reason. But British parliamentarian Lord Nasby has blown a hole now in that intransigence by quoting not only the figures cited by the then United States ambassador in Sri Lanka, but also classified reports by Britain's own defence attaché in the war-ravaged country at the time. He spoke exclusively to Vians Mandy Clark in London.
I tracked the war carefully. And I thought to myself, I can't actually believe these official figures because it didn't stack up to the information I was getting. So what I did was I asked for a freedom of information inquiry of what dispatches were sent by our defence attaché, that's the UK defence attaché, to the Foreign Office through the latter days of the war. And the dispatches, I was refused them by the Foreign Office. Appealed twice, still refused. Then appealed to the Information Commissioner, which is my right. He understood why I was actually asking these questions. And lo and behold, I got 26 pages of redacted dispatches. Missing were the last 6 weeks of the war. So I put in an appeal to him, and lo and behold, another 12 arrived. And armed with that, I went through them very carefully. And in there was more than enough evidence that no one in the Sri Lankan government had said about killing any civilians at all. That was not the objective of the exercise. And indeed the indications were from him, that is our defence attaché, that it was about 7,000 civilians probably killed. But even he says that a quarter of those were quite possibly Tamil Tigers because they'd thrown away their uniforms. So none knows what were called civilian casualties undoubtedly included probably 25% Tamil Tigers. So having done that, I then looked back on, well, who else has done some research? And I went to the university teachers, who are a pretty left-wing organisation. They said, about 7,000, that's our estimate. I then looked at the other evidence. Ambassador Blake, US ambassador, with only a few days to go, was reckoning there was about 5,000.
The reasons for Western nations targeting Sri Lanka's government and its armed forces and threatening them with dire consequences are not hard to understand. About 950,000 Sri Lankan Tamils fled their country to settle overseas, and many rose to positions powerful enough to dictate to the members of parliament in their respective constituencies. Add to the huge attractiveness of the island nation of Sri Lanka, its bounty of natural resources and its highly strategic location at the crossroads of oil shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean. The Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam were the inventors of the Fidain attack, the suicide bomb, and of the horrendous practice of using child soldiers. And yet, the United Kingdom has taken on even LTT uniformed cadres who fled the last stages of civil war and given them shelter. The Tamil Tigers are proscribed by many Western countries, and yet the United Kingdom and many others allow Tamils to celebrate LTTE chief Velupillai Prabhakaran's birthday and hoist the flag of the banned organisation every year.
I keep telling the Metropolitan Police that that is wrong. You're quite right, it does still happen. But they keep claiming that these guys are changing their flags. They're the same colours, they look like tigers to me, but they're not the tiger thing that was prescribed in the legislation. So that is work to be done, and it has to be done. And my colleagues here, actually this morning, raised with me, what are we doing now to make further representation to the anti-terror unit of the Metropolitan Police to sort the situation out. Quite wrong to have all these flags.
Lord Nasby's stand in Parliament last week has been hugely appreciated in Sri Lanka. The former employee of a multinational who lived many years in India also reminds Indians that it was the LTTE who killed former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. He says his representation as a member of the House of Lords to the UK government to amend the flawed figure of casualties from 40,000 down to 7,000 does not mean that war crimes like the killing of 3 top tigers despite their attempt to surrender with a white flag must certainly be investigated. As for the current government of Sri Lanka, Lord Nasby acknowledges that sincere attempts are being made to resettle and address the concerns of Tamils of the northern and eastern parts of the island state whose lives were shattered by the war, but that the Tamil Tigers must be seen in the right perspective as a proscribed organization that systematically killed most influential and educated Tamil leaders to ensure the solitary supremacy of its own tyrannical chief, Velupillai Prabhakaran. With Mandy Clark in London, Padma Rao for Beyond.